1 from the wholly abominable Tcho Tchos, 2 from the arachnid denizens of Earth's last age, 5 from the hardy Calopterus species immediately following mankind, to which the great race was someday to transfer its keenest minds en masse in the face of horrible peril. That was an excerpt from H.P. Lovecraft's The Shadow Out of Time. It was also a challenge to see how many words can I mispronounce. Thanks, Lovecraft. But this video is not about my inability to pronounce unspeakable words. Rather, it is about the Tcho Tcho. The Tcho Tcho. Now, I love this faction. At least I love their name, the Tcho Tcho. They're not crawling chaos. They're not opener of the way. They don't have some fancy philosophy or something. No. These guys are about themselves. This is an offshoot of humanity. They are the creation of another great old one. They're not a creation of H.P. Lovecraft. Actually, there's very little about them in general. They were actually originally created by August Derleth. H.P. Lovecraft liked August Derleth and used or referenced a lot of his writings. So that's how Tcho Tcho became embedded in the mythos. And these guys, they start with a bunch of cultists and high priests. So if you don't play with the high priest faction, they still get high priests, but you should play with the high priest faction. And if you do play with the high priest faction, then they start with a high priest and play from the very beginning. So play with the high priest faction. I haven't really been talking about the high priest too much in the other videos, but here I have to because this is their thing. And because this faction is all about the Tcho Tcho people themselves, most of their powers are actually through their high priest. At least that's their big advantage, especially in the beginning of the game. Okay, so the Tcho Tcho are not for the type of person who really loves an aggressive faction. They're not aggressive. They build up, often slightly discreetly, and then they have kind of a slow period in the middle of the game, and then in the end, they suddenly win. They may suddenly win with a massive turn where they crush people with their super powerful Great Old One. Most of the time that doesn't really happen. In fact, every time I see the Tcho Tcho unleash the full force of their might at the end, they don't win. They give a strong showing, but they don't win. So the Tcho Tcho are best when they are able to avoid or discourage attention and instead slowly kind of build up and then suddenly win. That's them. They turtle. That's the kind of faction. I have some ideas on how you could be more aggressive, and I'll kind of give a nod towards some of those, but that's definitely not normally how people play them. So I'm going to be primarily describing their normal flow. Okay, now I'm going to, like most of these videos, I'm going to give a best case scenario, and if nobody messes with you, you'll get to pull it off and it'll be amazing. And if people do mess with you, I'll try to talk about how to kind of counter that as you're going. So the first thing you have as an opener for the Tcho Tcho is you have to decide where do you start. So they say that after all other players have set up except opener and windwalker, then you choose an empty area containing a faction glyph. So in this scenario, I could choose to start in Africa because I have it set up for a 3-player game with Great Cthulhu and Crawling Chaos. There's a reason for Crawling Chaos because they're a huge threat to this faction. So I could choose to start in Africa or in Europe. I could choose to start in either Antarctica or the Arctic Ocean. But everybody that I've seen play Tcho Tcho, including myself, have all started in North America. That's where we start. I don't think there's anything wrong with this choice. It's an easy choice. You're fairly far away from other people, and you want to turtle and you want to grow up kind of quietly without being messed with a lot, so it feels like a safe choice. I'm going to play mostly from this mindset that North America is where you're going to start, but I do want to point out that if you wanted to really surprise people, if you wanted to play a more aggressive game, starting in Europe or Africa is going to allow you to bypass some of their mobility problems. And actually, they have one movement power, and that movement power doesn't help them too much from a North America start point, but it does help them if they start in Europe, Africa, or even better, Asia. If they're going to be a combat, if they're going to be aggressive, you want to be something crazy, you start in Asia if you can, if Crawling Chaos aren't there. And I think there's opportunities there, but I haven't seen it happen yet. So maybe I'll do it myself sometime. Okay. All right. So you started in North America. Now, because the High Priest faction is in play, at least in this scenario, then you did replace one of your cultists with a High Priest. If you did not play with the High Priest faction, you still have High Priests, you just don't start with one. And I think this is pretty interesting because what this is said is that you have an extra cultist waiting to be summoned. So keep that in mind. And 2 more High Priests. All right. So let's start with their faction ability, just to make sure we're keeping it in our head. Sycophancy. During the Doom phase, when an enemy player does a Ritual of Annihilation, either you gain 1 Doom, or that player earns 1 fewer Doom. When I have seen Tcho Tcho narrowly win, I have suspected that it is because their enemies have made poor choices with sycophancy. So this is my thought. This is how I think the other players, not the Tcho Tcho player, how the other players should be reacting to sycophancy. So if I'm Great Cthulhu and I perform a Ritual of Annihilation and the Tcho Tcho says, hey, sycophancy, what I should do is, if I am winning, meaning my Doom track score is higher, then I should say, Tcho Tcho, you get 1 Doom point. If I have less Doom points, then I should say, and the Tcho Tcho have more, specifically the Tcho Tcho have more than me, then I should say, I will take 1 less Doom point. Now, I know what I see people do is I see people say, I want to catch up, so I don't want 1 less Doom point. But the problem is that if the Tcho Tcho get 1 more Doom point when I got 1 more Doom point, then really I didn't catch up at all. That's right. That's what you have to keep in mind. If I'm at 5 and I'm going to go up to 7 and they're at 6, then if I gained 1 fewer, then I'm at 6 and they're at 6. Right now we're tied. If I let them get 1 Doom point, now I'm at 6 and they're at 7. Now they're still 1 ahead of me. So you got to keep that in mind. That's how people kind of mess themselves up with sycophancy. So if the Tcho Tcho player gets more points, he is more likely to end the game before you can catch up. If you get more points, even though it also helps him, right? Let's say that you're at 20 and he's at 15. Now you're at, say, 22 and he's at 16. You at that point are more likely to be able to end the game before he can catch up. So that's my thought with Sycophancy. That's their ability. It's not a very active ability, right? Again, they're kind of this turtling faction. They don't have a lot of abilities just to do stuff. All right, but they can react to what other people are doing. That's what they do. All right, so the first thing that I recommend the Tcho Tcho to do is to send a cultist off, let's say North Atlantic, and that's round 1, round 2. You could go anywhere, right? Actually, in a 3-player game, you don't have a lot of good options because you normally don't want to build in the ocean because you don't want to give Cthulhu, advantages, but you don't have a lot of options here. So you can either build in South America and then give him free attack targets, or you can try to build further away and build North Atlantic, knowing that in the future you're going to be helping Cthulhu. I'm going to say North Atlantic right here. Okay, so round 1, move a cultist. Round 2, build a gate. Round 3, turn 3, sacrifice your gate as an action. So at this point, we spent 1 for movement, 3 for a gate. We're at 4 power. We just got our first spellbook. So with our first spellbook, we choose Hierophants. What Hierophant says is when you earn any spellbook, including this one, immediately place a free high priest at one of your gates. If you have no high priest in your pool, instead advance Ubbo Sathla's growth counter by 1. So, boom, we put out a high priest because we got a spellbook. And from now on, the next 5 spellbooks, we have to make sure that we have a high priest in our pool. Otherwise, it's not valuable. They're not that valuable to get +1 growth counter, I don't think. Okay, so now you have 2 high priests, you have 5 cultists, you have 4 power. So at this point, if no one is messing with you, which, right, Crawling Chaos, they could mess with you right now. They could just fly over, mess with you. But if they're not messing with you, then 1 power, summon another cultist. 3 power, resummon your gate. End of your round, right? That's how I think you would maximize what you're doing. Because what's going to happen here is that now, at the next turn, during the gather power phase, you're going to get 6 power for 6 cultists. You're going to get 2 power for 2 high priests. That puts you at 8. And you're going to get 4 power for 2 gates. So that's going to put you at 12. Then you're going to sacrifice a high priest to summon Ubbo Sathla. Now, Ubbo Sathla is a pretty interesting creature. When he first comes out, he has 0 power. And the way that you know this is, in addition to your normal counter for tracking your doom points, you also have this little token, the Ubbo Sathla growth counter token. And you just put it next to the number he starts at. So he starts at 0. And what's going to happen for the rest of the game, every round, whether you have Ubbo Sathla out or not, you're going to roll d6, and you're going to increase his number of combat dice by that number. Heard right. So this round he's 0. Anybody can kill this guy. Next round, he's going to be between 1 and 6. The following round, he's going to be between 2 and 12. The next round, he's going to be between 3 and 18. So, depending on how well you roll, you may have the most powerful Great Old One relatively quickly. Or you can roll like me, and by the 5th round, you have 7 combat dice. I just can't roll for this guy for some reason. I've never had a time where he was powerful, but I've seen him powerful. I've seen him over 10, and that was amazing. So we'll talk about it later, but there you go. So first Doom phase, Ubbo Sathla. With Ubbo Sathla, you get a spellbook, right? I'm recommending Tablets of the Gods. When you perform a Ritual of Annihilation, you also receive 1 additional Elder Sign for each of your High Priests in play. Then eliminate those High Priests. This is not optional. So, at this point, you could get another spellbook. Oh, that actually summoned a High Priest. All right. So, let's do it. We have 12 power. It's probably good. It's probably among the highest of the game. We may be first player at this point. It's unlikely, but it might happen. So, we spend We spend 5 power. Ritual of Annihilation. With Tablet of the Gods, what it's going to say, when you perform a Ritual of Annihilation, you also receive 1 additional Elder Sign for each of your High Priests in play. Then eliminate those High Priests. This is not optional. Okay, so I spend the 5. I'm now down to 7 power. I have my Great Old One in play. I just sacrificed 2 High Priests, and I got 2 gates, so that's going to give me 2 Doom points. Well, I had 2 gates anyway, so that put me up to 4 Doom points. 2 just for 2 gates, 2 for Ritual of Annihilation, and then I get a Elder Sign for Ubbo Sathla, and I get 2 Elder Signs for sacrificing 2 cultists, high priests. Now, if the other players at the table are following the 1.5 rule for Doom points, in their head, they should be thinking that you have 4.5 Doom points here, right? So they should be thinking that you're really at an 8. They are probably at a 4. That's gonna scare some of the players. Now that could cause a lot of attacks. I don't know that this is the right call in your group. It entirely depends. If these 2 guys are already attacking each other, you might be able to do this. If they're looking around the table and they don't know who to attack yet, they now know who to attack. So that's a problem. But let's just move forward. So when you earn an Elder Sign, you get a spellbook. All right, Solus says, when captured and sacrificed, your cultists provide 0 power instead of the normal 1 power. So normally, you summon a cultist, they spend 1 power to capture the cultist, they get the power back, right? So it's effectively free for them to take a cultist from someone else because it costs 1 and they get 1. Alternatively, for the person who's losing the cultist, they have to spend 1 just to resummon the cultist the following round. So there's also some benefit of moving power from this round to the start of the next round because you're more likely to become first player, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of other things. But, okay, so now if someone can choose between capturing your cultist or capturing someone else's cultist, they should capture someone else's cultist, ignoring all other problems. All right, so Solus, that gives you a High Priest because of Hierophants, right? That's how Hierophants work. The second thing is if you own 3 or more Elder Signs, you get a spellbook. So let's go at this point with Terror. But terror says, as a battle action, choose 1. Your enemy's combat total is reduced by 1 per proto-shoggoth in the battle. Or, your combat total is increased by 1 per proto-shoggoth in the battle. Alright. So, at this point, let's move forward just a few seconds into the first round. You may have first player token, you may not. Definitely a good chance at 12 power that you could. Alright, so what do we have here? At this point, we have 6 cultists in play. We have, there's another spellbook, so another high priest. We have 2 high priests in play. We have our great old one with 0 combat dice. We have 2 gates. This round, we have 2 remaining spellbooks we need to get. One says, either another player performs a Ritual of Annihilation, or another player has 15 doom. Neither of those are going to happen for several turns. If you're playing with a more aggressive group, it's possible. Maybe someone like Opener of the Way might do an early Ritual of Annihilation, especially because if everybody in the table knows that you're going to be pushing that Ritual of Annihilation track up, they're going to want to get their points while it's still cheap. Okay? So they might do a Ritual of Annihilation. But knowing that you're going to get a spellbook out of it, they may avoid it. So this scenario, this order, it does put you a little bit at a risk because you're not going to get any more spellbooks for a while. Why? Because the last spellbook is any great old one is killed in battle. Alright, so at this point, I can't give you a play-by-play. I mean, even this play-by-play is assuming that no one's going to attack you. I think that if every faction 100% focuses on building up as powerful as they can, you and Black Goat will be the most powerful at this point. That's what I think. You, because you'll be closest to 6 spellbooks. Black Goat, because he's going to have a lot of units. He's going to start getting a lot of power and all that kind of stuff. But in this case, against Crawling Chaos and Cthulhu, you now need to start defending yourself. You're going to have to assume that they're going to pick on you because in theory, you have a lot of doom points. And that's just going to kind of keep going up the next couple rounds. All right, so what you want to do is you want to end your second turn with 3 or 4 gates. That'd be perfect. All right, so number 1, you need to prevent this guy. At this point, Cthulhu should have dreams. So, you could lose this guy. You don't really want to lose this whole gate. So we summon a Proto-Shoggoth. Boom, right there. Now, Proto-Shoggoths cost 2 and they have 1 combat. So when should you use Terror and which way should you use Terror? Well, it somewhat depends. It's definitely not consistent what you should do. So Terror right now, he's just a 1 combat die monster, right? If Crawling Chaos were to send in a Star Spawn with 3 combat dice, you're 1, they're 3. Most likely you're both gonna pain out. That's the real scenario here, is that there's a good chance you flat out will not roll a pain with 1 combat die. He will almost guaranteed roll a pain, probably not a kill. So in that scenario, you should, if you want to defend your cultist, no matter what, that's your priority, then you should reduce his combat dice from 3 to 2, because now you've reduced the chances that he's going to get a pain or a kill, because he's only on 2. There's still a good chance you're going to run away. Also, with 1 combat die, it's very unlikely you're going to get a kill, and even a pain is not great odds. So in this scenario, 1 versus 1, and you don't really care what happens to your Proto-Shoggoth, then you may want to go up to the 2 to try to drive him away. Because in this scenario, it may be more important to you that you drive him away even if you die. And letting him have his 3 dice means you're likely to die. Now, you can imagine 2 Proto-Shoggoths. Now you can reduce him from a 3 to a 1, and now you have 2 versus his 1. Or you can increase to your 4 from 2 to 4, and he still stays at 3. 4 versus 3, you are effectively betting that you can kill him, right? You're saying, I don't care on his 3 dice if he has a kill. If he has a kill, as long as he dies too, I'm good. But you should always keep in mind that unless you have 8 dice, you should not assume you're going to get a kill on either side. I like to assume that if he has 6 dice, he's going to get a kill. If I have 8 dice, I'm going to get a kill, because I feel like I can more rely on it. Okay, now where this really comes out is if Nyarlathotep is nearby. What should you do in this scenario? Nyarlathotep, he's going to have 3, 4, let's say he's going to have 8 combat dice. So 8 combat dice versus my 1 Proto-Shoggoth. That's kind of rude, kind of bullying, but okay, let's deal with it. So 8 combat dice, does it help for me to reduce him from 8 to 7? I would say no. Also, the value of killing Nyarlathotep, which if he has, depending on which spellbook, it may not even be possible, but I would say that it is better to kill or drive away Nyarlathotep than it is to survive Nyarlathotep. So in this scenario, I'd rather have 2 chances to kill him than 1 chance, but he's going to roll 7 dice. With 7 dice, he's guaranteed to pain everybody if he wants. That's just how it's going to go, right? So that's kind of like some thought processes behind using terror. All right, so at this point, with 2 power, you went from 7 to 5. You have a bunch of high priests. Keep in mind, you can sacrifice the high priests at the end of anybody's action. Now that's important because in many times we've had crawling chaos people who try to use, let's say that they summon Nyarlathotep. They try to use Nyarlathotep's 1,000 forms to get power, but somebody traps him, and Nyarlathotep has a choice to either run away or use 1,000 forms. If he runs away and he has 0 power, he can't use 1,000 forms because you cannot take 0 cost actions if you have no power. On the other hand, unspeakable oath is an ongoing effect. It's not an action, and it's a response to what someone else has done on their action. So if I let myself get down to 0 power, but then he thinks he's just going to be able to like wander in, what I could do is I could sacrifice a high priest to get myself 2 power, not as an action on my turn, but the end of Nyarlathotep's action, moving in. Then on my turn, again, because that was not an action, now I have power, so I can go again. And at this point, I could summon another Proto-Shoggoth. I could say, hey, this isn't gonna be painless. Or I could bring in Ubbo Sathla. Now, why would I bring in Ubbo Sathla? There's a big reason why I bring in Ubbo Sathla. Ubbo Sathla, if he dies, then I get another spellbook. So let's assume that this has not happened, because I don't think it's actually possible for Nyarlathotep to bring out, for Crawling Chaos to bring out Nyarlathotep and attack with him. So he really would have to choose to do something else. Let's say Cthulhu, because it's still kind of unlikely, but let's say it could happen. Second turn, he attacks with Cthulhu. He needs to get some kills to get his spellbook, so it could happen, barely. I think he'd suffer for it. Okay, so I sacrifice a high priest. I move in Ubbo Sathla, who is 0, right? Now, Cthulhu initiates combat with, say, his last power. At this point, he's going to devour someone. I would probably choose, I'd just let him devour my cultist, maybe. And now my 0 combat dice great old one is here. There's a good chance he's gonna die. I've basically forced the issue. In the very beginning, you want Ubbo Sathla to be in a combat and to die. It kind of puts you at a crappy next turn, but it needs to happen. So he dies, he does some combat stuff, and he gets pained out. You let him die. Maybe not. He's pained. Maybe he's dead. But hopefully he's not dead, because then you just gave Cthulhu two spellbooks. Hopefully you just have the one guy dead, and that gives you another spellbook. I would say Martyrdom. If your High Priest is assigned a kill, all other kills assigned to your other units become pains instead. Now, of course, you just got a spellbook, so you get a High Priest back out. Let's say he's right there. Boom. And that's the end of your second turn, or end of a possible second turn. So at this point, you have 5 spellbooks, and you're just waiting for someone else to do another Ritual of Annihilation. And of course, at this point, you sacrifice a High Priest, and you bring back Ubbo Sathla. At this point, on the second round, the second Doom phase, this is the 3rd round, second Doom phase, you roll. And of course, because this is how I play Tcho Tcho, I roll a 1. I can't help it, guys. You want me to play Tcho Tcho if you have any fear of Ubbo Sathla. My friend Ramsey, on the other hand, you do not want him to play Tcho Tcho, because he's going to roll 5s and 6s every round, and he's going to have Godzilla Tcho just wandering around the map, killing everything. Not me, though. 3rd round, I might have a 3. No, I might have a 2 or 3. At any rate, be afraid of Ubbo Sathla right now. He's a 1 combat die. Okay, let's fast forward to the 3rd round. Oh, I rolled a 2, guys. 3rd round, be afraid. 3 combat dice. Okay, let's forget that. Let's assume that you're a normal person and that you can roll higher than 1s and 2s for Ubbo Sathla. So if you're a normal person, you're at like a 7 or 8, 3rd round. You've got some High Priests. You really need to keep summoning some Proto-Shoggoths. And you really kind of got to get another gate. Keep in mind you have a cultist wandering around, so you kind of gotta do those. This is pretty typical of what I've seen Tcho Tcho on 3rd or 4th turn is, but in control of a gate. Typically, Tcho Tcho players, they have Ubbo Sathla, they're out. Honestly, at this point, someone else is going to have a Ritual of Annihilation. They may not have 15 Doom. Depends on how aggressive your group is. My group, they snipe at each other, and then it just slows the game down because everyone's kind of been weak. But with some players, they turtle more, they build more gates. More players is more gates is more opportunities to take things. There's all those kind of different scenarios. But typically, this is what an Ubbo Sathla player looks like 3rd or 4th turn. Their last spellbook, of course, they got another High Priest. This is where the game slows down for the Tcho Tcho. Okay? At this point, you have most of your monsters. Now, Tcho Tcho have less units than everybody else, and they only have 1 type of monster, just the Proto-Shoggoths. Proto-Shoggoths are more powerful together because they plus or minus the number of Proto-Shoggoths in the area using terror. So this is where they kind of run out of steam, in my experience. So, of course, what they want to do in a scenario like this is they want to sacrifice. Now, if they, let's say that this was 4th turn, you probably lost a gate, you took a gate, you only have 3 gates. If nobody else is messing with you at all, you could have 5 gates at this point. You have a bunch of cultists, you have a bunch of high priests, you could capture 9 different gates. You could actually hold 9 gates in theory. No one's ever going to let you have 9 different gates. But if they're really attacking each other hardcore, you could just walk in and take a bunch of gates at the end of the turn maybe, and what would that leave you? Like right here with 6 cultists, 3 high priests, that's 9 power. 3 gates is 6 power, so it's 15 power. So if this was your 3rd or 4th turn, and this is all you have, this may be all you have the rest of the game. Because let's say that you spent 6 power to do another Ritual of Annihilation. That's gonna, using tablets, your 3 high priests die. That's pretty painful, it's 9 power. But you get 3 more Elder Signs. At this point, you should be, I don't know, probably 12, maybe. With 3 more gates, you just pushed up 3 more Doom points. Let's just reveal. Now, of course, what everyone else should assume is that with 6 Elder Signs, that you have 9 Doom points. So when they see you have 15, they should think in their head that you actually have 24. The game's almost over. That's something really important to keep in mind. You never expanded out of your corner. Game's almost over. Or at least that's what everyone else is going to assume. These could all be 1s. But let's just see. 2, 4, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12. 27 Doom. If I were to reveal them. 27 Doom. That's it. If no one else has a lot of Elder Signs, all you're trying to do is end the round with 2 gates and maybe enough power to do a ritual, and you win. So the key to Tcho Tcho is, while you are a turtle faction, while you play defensively, and while you're really trying to get people to leave you alone long enough to do your weird arcane rituals, while that's all true, what you always have to keep in mind is that Cthulhu Wars is won by the Doom track, and it's up to you to end the game when you think you've won. So obviously, if you see some yellow sign and they have as many Elder Signs as you, and you're at, let's say, 24, maybe you don't, and they're at 24, maybe you don't end it. But if you're at 24 and yellow sign's at 22, I think you should end it. You have the same number of Doom Elder Signs, I think you should end it. And if you don't, and you give them one more round, Tcho Tcho get weaker every round of the game. That's just how they are. If you compared the value, the points per turn of the Doom track for the Tcho Tcho, they should get comparatively less the longer the game goes. They're just going to lose ground. So meanwhile, the other factions often get more powerful. There's an ebb and tide, right? There's a swing that kind of happens. Somebody gets powerful and then everybody takes them down, that kind of thing going on. But for the most part, they keep getting powerful the rest of the game. Tcho Tcho, they lose the ability of Hierophants once it's done. So this spellbook is effectively just useless after the 6 Hierophants come out, or 6 High Priests come out. Tablets of the Gods is only useful when you can afford to do rituals and when you have High Priests out to activate. So there, you can't keep sacrificing high priests after you don't get them back for free anymore. It's easy to sacrifice them when you get them for free from Hierophants. It's harder later on. So you've got to end the game as fast as possible. In this scenario, I randomly grabbed these Elder Signs and I could end very quickly. Some scenarios you're not going to be able to do that. So you really have to play some mind games with the other players. You have to convince, like in the beginning, this is something I really try to recommend. So I believe that if you spend the first couple turns encouraging someone to take advantage of your weak Ubbo Sathla, in their heads, this is like a game theory kind of thing, I think that they will think that they do not want to attack your Ubbo Sathla, because they will see, okay, if I attack their Ubbo Sathla and kill their Ubbo Sathla, I get nothing, right? You spend 1 power to attack, and you get nothing for it, except to kill Ubbo Sathla. Meanwhile, the Tcho Tcho, they get a spellbook, they get a free High Priest, and they're going to resummon Ubbo Sathla again for effectively 3 power the next turn. So that feels in their gut like it was a bad situation. Most of the time, Tcho Tcho end up being forced to lead an attack, right? If I attack with a Pro Shotgun and an Ubbo Sathla, I had to spend 2 power to move, and I spent 1 power to attack, just so that I can hope that Ubbo Sathla gets killed. I mean, in this scenario, it's perfect, because if I could kill Cthulhu, that's even better than Ubbo Sathla dying. But what's the odds? Most of the time, Ubbo Sathla is probably going to die. And that's fine, I get a spellbook and a High Priest for it. But it's not great. What you really don't want to have happen is you don't want to teach Crawling Chaos a bad lesson, because if they get it in their head that, oh, every round that Ubbo Sathla is out until it gets big, I'm just going to have Nyarlathotep show up and kill Ubbo Sathla and get Harbinger. So if you don't remember, Harbinger gives them either half the cost, which doesn't work for Ubbo Sathla. I guess the cost technically is 6, so he'd get 3 power. He can get either 3 power or he can get 2 Elder Signs. He should want those 2 Elder Signs more than the 3 power, but yeah, who knows. This is a bad scenario. You don't want Nyarlathotep to think he can just pick on Ubbo Sathla all the time. So discourage him from that. Once Ubbo Sathla is bigger, he's not going to want that, because the only thing Nyarlathotep can die from is other Great Old Ones. So whatever. So this is effectively Tcho Tcho. I'm very curious if anyone has, like, just give some good alternate scenarios. I could definitely talk about a couple different openers, but that's not really what I do. I just like to give you a good understanding of how things work and the interactions. But if you post down below, then everybody else will get to read like your opener with Tcho Tcho. Also, if anybody has done a opener where you intentionally start between other people, because idolatry, where you get to move units for 1 power, all adjacent units into their space, that could be really amazing for a combat faction. The problem is Proto-Shoggoths just aren't that powerful unless you group them. But if you're counting on having a powerful Ubbo Sathla by turn 4, it could be epic. They could be amazing and just like bully people around. They're super giant, big 13 or 14 power Ubbo Sathla. I don't know. I want to see it. I just think it's cool. I just want to roll that many dice. I've only seen other people roll that many dice. For me, it's always not that many. All right. So, post down below, guys. Let me know what you're thinking. And all right, big question, guys. Do I do my next Cthulhu Wars video about one of the 2 factions I haven't yet? I haven't done a video about Sleepers, and I haven't done a video about Windwalkers. This is why. I'm waiting on Cthulhu Onslaught 3 to come, because that's where I ordered the next 2. So If I do a video about them, I'm going to have to use placeholders. I'm not going to be able to use the actual units. I feel a little bit dirty. I'm just one of those people. I don't like to use placeholders. I don't like to use like other units or monsters or tokens. So, but I'll do it for you guys. If you guys really want me to, I'll convince the other people to let me play with, I don't know, little Play-Doh monsters. And I will do the research, I will play, and I will come up with the videos. Or I have an entire thing of the independent monsters and the independent great old ones. So that would be really fun. I'd like to do it. Get into more strategy of when should you use Star Spawn and when should you use the servitors and that kind of stuff. But if you guys want the factions more, and you don't mind the fact that I don't have the figures yet, I won't have them for another, I don't know, a few months. Then, yeah, I could just use placeholders. All right, I appreciate all your comments, guys. It's so exciting to me to see comments and be able to respond to you guys, and see a lot of people that are smarter than me giving some really good advice. So I love it. Keep the comments going, and bye, guys.